The next item of business is portfolio questions on the rural economy. Members should note that question 4 has been withdrawn and that therefore it's only questions 6 and 8 which are grouped together. Anyone who wishes to ask a supplementary on either of these questions should press the request to speak button in the usual way. Question number 1, Liz Smith.
To ask the Scottish Government when the Agriculture and Climate Change Strategic Group will next meet.
Marie Goujon.
The group's most recent meeting was actually on Monday of this week, which I attended for the first half.
Liz Smith.
Could I thank the Minister for that response? The Minister will know that the media report suggests that agriculture in Scotland is responsible for 23.9% of all emissions. And despite this, the NFUS reports that and I quote, the greenhouse gas footprint of beef produced in the UK is 60% lower than the average for the rest of the world. So what more does the Minister think can be done by the Scottish Government to ensure that the Scottish public feel that they are supporting local beef producers and not contributing to climate change problems?
Marie Goujon.
That is exactly what we want to do and what we do, because I would say that, and I really want to make this message clear, that the Scottish Government certainly does not see farmers as the problem here, but very much part of the solution. And I think what hasn't helped in recent times is the downright misrepresentation that we've seen in various TV programmes recently, which have conflated systems around the world with farming systems here when they're absolutely nothing alike. Now, there is a lot of work to be done, but we also need to better recognise the good work that farmers do and what already takes place and how we can better advertise that and get the word out about what's happening. And to that end, there are various schemes that we're working on, one which was actually in the press this week. I believe it was referenced in the Press and Journal. And that work is being led by the Scottish Agricultural Organisation Society with financial support from the Scottish Government. And that initiative is called Carbon Positive. And that really aims to gather data on soils, woodland, livestock and renewable energy to give a complete picture of what farms and crofts are doing to mitigate against climate change. And that will ultimately be a national online programme for the farming industry to give farmers all the information that they need about their contribution to and mitigation of climate change. And SEOS, working with James Hutton Institute and Scottish Forestry, are gathering data on carbon sequestration for the sector, as well as working with the A&M Group, who are a North East Farmers Cooperative. They're involved in the livestock part of the programme through its Farm Profit programme. So I think with all that information combined, we need to get that message out, and that will enable farmers to get that message out as well about the positive contribution that they're making.
Question number 2, Mary Fee.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on when it will publish its Good Food Nation Bill.
Fergus Ewing.
Work is underway to draft the bill, and we plan to publish it as part of the legislative programme set out in the programme for government for this parliamentary year.
Mary Fee.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer? We know that food bank use has soared in the last decade, and governments cannot rely on the goodwill of donations and volunteers to feed the poorest. What does the Cabinet Secretary envision the bill will do to tackle food poverty, and will the bill include a statutory right to food?
Fergus Ewing.
Well, I think the member does raise a very important point about consequences, sadly, of the policies of austerity pursued by the London government for far too long. It's important to say that this government and my government colleagues have done a huge amount of things to try to ameliorate the poverty, sadly, which has been resultant from this period of austerity. And therefore, for example, in 2018-19, we invested over £1.4 billion in targeted support for low-income households, including over £100 million to mitigate the worst impact of UK welfare cuts. And we've increased our Fair Food Fund to £3.5 million this year to provide continued support. As to the question of a right to food, our consultation did not recommend inclusion of a right to food, but proposed that Scottish ministers should have regard to international obligations, which are wider than just the right to food, when developing statements of policy on food. Obviously, we look forward to publication of the bill in due course.
If we could keep supplementaries short, please. I have one from Stuart McMillan.
Presiding officer, to ask the Cabinet Secretary if he can tell me how he's supporting local authorities' environmental health departments at a time when the number of plant-based vegan food outlets and food and drink producers are increasing.
Fergus Ewing.
Well, we do a wide range of work with local authorities. For example, we have the Food for Life programme, where we're working with many local authorities, encouraging them to provide fresh local food and locally procured food. And many local authorities are doing a terrific job. Indeed, I visited Crown Primary School in my own constituency, where they provide a wide variety of nutritious meals, obviously including fruit and vegetables, to the pupils, and they also use a local butcher to supply a very large number of schools. That's the sort of work that I think stands Scotland's children in good stead.
Question number 3, Angus MacDonald.
To ask the Scottish Government what action it's taking to provide full DNA traceability to the Scotch beef brand.
Fergus Ewing.
The Scottish Government Knowledge Transfer and Innovation Fund has recently awarded Quality Meat Scotland almost £100,000 in grant funding for a project looking at Scotch beef PGI traceability.
Angus MacDonald.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for his reply. Clearly, there will be a benefit to our world-class beef industry from a DNA traceability system, which will take the existing quality assurance and brands integrity measures currently in place to a new level. However, does the Cabinet Secretary share my concerns following the passing of the UK Government's Agriculture Bill's second reading last Monday, which attempts to grab key powers from the Scottish Parliament on farming and food production, that the Tories have shown their true colours with an agriculture bill set to grab devolved powers and a negotiating approach that would see a trade deal with Donald Trump undermine world-renowned Scottish produce, including our world-class Scotch beef and lamb?
Fergus Ewing.
Well, I think Mr MacDonald raises a point which is of concern not only to farmers on this side of the border, but to farmers throughout the UK. Indeed, I read of a demonstration planned by some farmers taking their case to Westminster. Let me be clear, the Scottish Government won't support any proposed future UK trade deals that would not only undermine our own high-quality regulatory standards, but would also lead consumers unwittingly to purchase products that are produced to a lower welfare standard. I made this position clear to UK ministers. Myself and Rosanna Cunningham will make that clear once again at the forthcoming next interministerial meeting on the 17th of February. What is really sad is that the UK just haven't given any clarity on this topic at all. Indeed, I understand that Mr Conor Burns, in an exchange with Ivan McKee, indicated he did expect there to be reciprocal trade in agricultural products, and it seems pretty clear to anyone that the President of the United States will be determined to get his agricultural produce into the UK market.
Question number 4 has been withdrawn. Question number 5, Peter Chapman.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it plans to support the GrassTech project, which aims to develop existing livestock farming technology to monitor and reduce methane production.
Fergus Ewing.
GrassTech is a cross-Europe collaborative project tackling the issue of methane emissions from livestock, a topic of interest for both the Scottish Government and Scottish agriculture. The Scottish Government currently invests £7.2 million annually in longer-term agricultural and rural research at Scotland's Rural College, and this investment also underpins their success in securing the £250,000 grants provided by DEFRA for GrassTech. Scottish Government officials will work with DEFRA to ensure the results of the project are used to help inform our future policy in this area.
Peter Chapman.
I thank the Minister for that answer, and I declare an interest as a partner in the farming business. The GrassTech project aims to develop an accurate way of measuring methane produced by livestock being reared outside on grass. 90% of Scotland's cattle are outdoors for a significant amount of the year, and hopefully this project will identify sensible and practical measures the farming industry can use in order to continue its already substantial efforts in the fight against climate change. I also hope this project will bring hard facts and dispel some of the myths that have been circulating regarding the farming sector's effect on the environment. So can the Minister outline what measures the Scottish Government is taking to further support farmers in their fight against climate change, and what it intends to do to challenge some of the dishonesties circulated regarding the industry's effect on the environment?
Fergus.
Well, we're doing a number of things there, Nent. Firstly, I particularly welcome the range of activity, including Quality Meat Scotland's Better Grazing project, which works with livestock farmers across Scotland. I've also mentioned the substantial support to SRUC. I've also had the opportunity to discuss with farmers at a monitor farm work being done to improve qualities of grass. I've also seen improved agronomy techniques in minimising the use of fertiliser. We will be bringing forward more details of plans further to encourage sustainable and low-carbon farming very soon. And I'm very pleased that this appears to be a topic upon which members across the chamber share an approach to ensure that not only are our farmers producing some of the highest quality meat in the world, but they're also doing that in a way that it is friendly to the planet and sustainable. And I'm very pleased that this is something that meets with approval across the chamber.
Short supplementary, please, from Emma Harper.
The Cabinet Secretary will be aware that there are many farmers and crofters already shifting to a grass-fed approach for the livestock, as it is more sustainable and efficient. Can he outline how the Scottish Government is further supporting this activity?
Fergus Ewing.
Well, as Emma Harper rightly says, our livestock farmers play a key role in protecting our permanent grassland and the historic carbon sinks that are stored beneath it. We want all farmers and crofters to make best use of their grasslands, produce high-quality food, improve sustainability and help achieve our long-term climate environmental targets. There's a lot more I can say, Presiding Officer, but as you know, I always try to be brief.
Yes, please don't. Question number 6, Gordon MacDonald.
To ask the Scottish Government what impact the UK Government's proposed immigration controls could have on Scotland's food and drink sector.
Ben Macpherson.
Current UK immigration policy does not recognise the needs of Scotland's key industries. As James Wither, CEO of Scotland Food and Drink, has stressed, the food and drink sector employs 40,000 EU nationals, with a further 46,000 roles needing filled by 2030. The UK Government's proposals will restrict labour market access, and could leave many of these roles in one of Scotland's critical industries unfulfilled. Our proposals for a Scottish visa would allow Scottish ministers accountable to this Scottish Parliament to develop a tailored migration policy within the UK immigration system to meet Scotland's needs.
Gordon MacDonald.
I thank the Minister for that answer. The Minister will be aware that many EU citizens living and working in Scotland are employed in food and drink sector, including at Burton's Biscuits in my constituency. Does he agree that instead of putting up restrictive barriers to our valued EU citizens staying in Scotland, the UK should drop the settled status scheme and introduce a system based on declaration of proof of status?
Ben Macpherson.
The Scottish Government has consistently sought to be constructive and solution-focused to the clear deficiencies within the UK Government's approach to the rights of EU citizens. And we have long argued that in place of the EU settlement scheme, the UK Government should instead adopt a declaratory system with the option of physical proof for those who desire it. This would avoid the need for people to make applications and remove the threat of refusal, except in the most extreme circumstances. As things stand within the current scenario, we are also supporting EU citizens across Scotland to stay in Scotland, because that's what we want, and have provided significant resource, including to Citizens Advice Scotland, to support them in this. And I am grateful for all of those who are helping to support our EU citizens to stay in Scotland, and encourage more and more employers and indeed MSPs to get behind that effort.
Question number 8, Keith Brown.
To ask the Scottish Government how its proposed Scottish visa could impact on the rural economy.
Ben Macpherson.
The current migration system is not working for our rural communities, and both the Scottish visa and rural migration pilot schemes, in line with the recommendation from the Migration Advisory Committee, could have a significant positive impact on the growth and sustainability of our rural economy. These measures would allow Scotland to attract and, crucially, retain people with the skills and attributes we need for our communities to flourish. The UK Government should engage positively and work with us to develop these pilots and trial them in Scotland to encourage people to move to and stay in our rural communities.
Keith Brown.
Answer, and also ask whether he shares my concerns about reports from a recruitment agency based in my constituency which specialises in sourcing staff from Europe for the rural hospitality sector, where there is limited local seasonal labour, that in a recent recruitment drive, instead of the usual 40+ applicants, only 3 people applied for positions. Does he agree with the UK's Migration Advisory Committee recommendation that the UK should pilot tailored approaches for our rural areas, and will he make a request for Scotland to host such pilots to address labour shortages in areas like the rural hospitality industry?
Ben Macpherson.
I very much share Keith Brown's concerns, and the example he cites is one which shows that the fact that we have now left the EU makes us less attractive, unfortunately, for migrant workers, and also we are having to compete with other EU countries who wish to attract the same individuals to work in their economies. As Keith Brown has said, and I mentioned in my last answer, pilots should be hosted here in Scotland, and we are continue to engage with UK ministers and the Home Office on that they should bring those pilots to Scotland. We have said that consistently since the previous Home Secretary mentioned it on the 23rd of July 2019, and we will continue to engage with UK Government to press them to do this thing, to undertake these pilots, which will be the benefit of all of Scotland.
Question number 7, Ruth Maguire.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what action it's taking to support environmentally sustainable farming practices.
Marie Goujon.
The support provided to farmers, crofters and land managers clearly contributes to environmentally sustainable farming practices. Those receiving funding as direct payments must adhere to agricultural practices beneficial for the climate and the environment. Our Agri-Environment Climate Scheme has successfully funded a range of activities that help to maintain and enhance our rich and varied natural environment, with almost 1 million hectares of land under environmental management. And our new Agricultural Transformation Programme will encompass the now statutory commitments on whole farm emissions accounting, sustainability, innovation and an agricultural modernisation fund in line with the climate emergency.
Ruth Maguire.
Thank the Minister for that very full answer. The Minister will be aware that several times now Boris Johnson has made clear he intends to allow GM crops to be grown in England. Can the Minister advise what consultation there has been with the Scottish Government on this, and could she provide reassurance to concerned citizens on the Scottish Government's position on GM crop cultivation?
Marie Goujon.
I can quite simply say the UK Government has not consulted with the Scottish Government on this. However, I would say in addition to that that this is a devolved matter, and I can categorically say our position on GM has not changed. We've brought in domestic legislation that aligns with EU law and allows us to maintain our opt-out of GM crop cultivation, and we would urge the UK Government to continue to align with EU standards on GM in the future.
Short, quick supplementary, please, from Colin Smith.
A new agricultural support system will be key to support an environmentally sustainable farming, and it's important that the transition period is used to prepare for this. So can the Minister tell us when the Government will bring forward details on how the pilot schemes to develop that new system will be funded, and is it still the intention to cap direct payments to fund those pilots?
A shorter and quicker answer, please, from Marie Goujon.
I can just say that I'd be happy to get back to the member with more detail on that, but I would say that there is already one pilot underway with SNH, and again, I'll get back to him with further detail on how we plan to take that forward.
That concludes portfolio questions, and we'll move on to the next item of business, if everyone could shift their seats accordingly.